Hello everybody and welcome back. Today I'm going to make a super quick video on how to write a resume. Now I will paste a link in the description to two things. First is going to be my Fiverr profile where I'm actually offering a freelance service to write resumes for you as well as conduct mock interviews. But I'm also going to post a link to the longer version of this video. Writing a resume, it can be as easy or complicated as you want it to be. So the longer video is going to cover how to actually essentially determine what the tone of the resume should be, to better understand your target audience, and then write a resume relevant to a job description. However, here I'm just going to walk through a very, very basic example and give you kind of like a short rundown on how to do this. As always, please don't forget to like and subscribe and check back into the channel for new content. Now, jumping straight in, I've made this fictitious resume for John Doe, and I want to highlight a couple of things that I noticed while working in recruiting. So, firstly, make sure that your formatting is consistent. So what I would recommend is don't start out with the formatting, change it at the end. So what I mean by this is if you start out with Times New Roman and then throughout you start bolding and changing font size, it could end up getting very, very consistent by the time you get to the end of the resume. So this is the content I would recommend in your resume. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go through this and then I'll show you what I mean with the formatting piece at the very end of the video. So basically, you're going to start out with a Word document because you can create that and then make it into a PDF. I don't recommend just having one. It's always great to have a Word or PDF. Some companies have preferences there. And some applications actually will only allow you to import a PDF document. So it's always good to have both on hand. Now, first, you're going to start out with your name. I always recommend this in what I would call center stage, so front and center at the top of the resume. I always usually will make my name maybe like a couple points larger. So we'll put John Doe. Next up is the city, because employers are going to want to know, do you live here? Do you need to relocate? Tons of people will apply to jobs halfway across the United States without even realizing it, or may realize it and just plan to move there. But sometimes employers say, like, you need to be here within the week. Like, we want to make this decision now. So make sure that you highlight where you live. Putting a phone number is great. I notice a lot of people will not put their phone number, but I get nervous only putting an email because a lot of different emails can go to spam or be filtered out in one way or another. Then have your email address. Now, I don't like putting my full address only because I've seen a lot of fake job postings and they're typically just like scammers trying to get information. So I try to be as vague as possible when I can. Now, first, I like to put a skills section. So you could put summary of skills, professional skills. You can keep this bold or you can keep it in just the traditional font. I like to use headings with a bold font just because I think it kind of helps to segment or separate that data a little bit better. Now, on the left-hand side, you'll see some customer service skills. On the right-hand side, you'll see some kind of like random IT skills. Now, summary of skills is great because a lot of employers will obviously expect you to have this experience, but what this does is it also helps people searching for resumes. So for example, if you look up a job and it says you need to have, let's just say, customer service experience, and they're looking for people with management, cash handling, etc., that's probably going to be in their search criteria if they're searching through Indeed or Monster or ZipRecruiter or whatever the job board is. But if recruiters are doing that search, same thing. So if I want someone who has management experience and the word management doesn't appear on your resume, your resume is probably not going to pop up in my search result. Same thing with IT. If you know they want specific experience with certain hardware or software or certain operating systems or whatever the case is, you're going to want to make sure that that's highlighted because it makes you relevant. Now, if you're only applying directly to a job, it can also be helpful because internal HR managers may not be as heavily involved with the job itself, so they're going to be comparing it to the job description. So you need to make sure that this section is up to date, and I would honestly recommend no less than 6 bullet points. If you need examples, you can feel free to look around online, but this is a very, very helpful section, more so for search results, but also helps people when they're reading through. It's almost like a mental checklist sometimes hiring managers can go through, like, do they have VMware experience, networking protocols, etc. They'll see that, and once you make that initial 15 to 20 second connection, because that's about as much time as most people will spend on a resume, it keeps them on this page longer. Now, Next up, I would recommend experience. Some people will put education here. I recommend that more so for recent graduates who may not have as much work experience, but if you know for a fact that the education is a big piece, then go ahead and throw it in. Now, experience itself, I would always recommend the name of the company that you worked at, the city, and the job title, as well as the actual dates that you were there. I don't like seeing when people just put 1 year to 1 year. For example, if you said that you were employed at a company from January, or let's just say from 2015 to 2016, that could be 1 year, it could be 2 years. However, it could also be 2 months. For example, if you worked there December of 2015 and then you left in, let's just say, January of 2016, that's only 2 months and technically could have been less. So it can appear as if some people are trying to hide gaps in resumes, and just really does not help when individuals need to know, like, do you have 10 years of experience, or are you just showing a bunch of like 2 to 5 months segments? Now, if you have a career trajectory or a history that you want to highlight as well, don't be scared to write something like this. So I have Cisco as an example in Denver as a senior principal network engineer. And we're going to say that I worked at Cisco this length of time. However, I held this job title for this length of time. And before that, I held this job title. So it can look a little odd, but this is one way I really like to kind of display this information. And you can feel free to separate just by keeping the dates a little bit further apart, but this is a way that I've found to be pretty successful. Then let's just say you have a single position and it's more customer service oriented. So we're going to have our company, city, so that they know that we're local, and then our job title, and then the dates of employment. Now, the content itself is harder to write for a general audience because that's specific to what you did. But what I recommend is read through the job description. What hardware do they want you to have worked with? What customer service experience? Do they want sales? Do they want call center? Like, you need to make sure that you highlight what they're asking for you to do. And above all else, avoid 1 to 2 word bullet points. If you're going for a customer service role, don't just simply put cash handling. Because when I read this, I'm looking for someone who has customer service experience. I want someone who can articulate what they've done, but also who can hold a conversation. And if you're just putting 2-word lines that just say, like, I did this, then it doesn't necessarily help me to understand that you can communicate effectively. So as much detail as possible, but be concise as well. So 3 to 5 bullet points is usually going to be sufficient. Once you get into more technical roles, then you can get upwards of like 10 plus bullet points. But just, again, make sure that you aren't rambling. Treat it like how you would talk to someone. If I ask you, what did you do in your most recent position? Act as if you're trying to impress me, and that's what goes here. So if you're going to say assisted with interviewing prospective employees, add a little bit more detail to make this a meatier sentence. If you're going to say assisted with architecture and design for large enterprise level networking systems, make sure there are bullet points that highlight what exactly you were working with. Like, how were you helping with this project? Because saying that you just did that, like, were you leading it? Were you an individual contributor? What was the hardware that you were working with? Like, what were you doing? Because you need to make it relevant. Lastly, education and certifications. I always recommend the university or high school or whatever the area or school that you graduated from, and then the year you graduated. It doesn't even hurt to put dates, letting people know when you started and when you finished. Just make sure if you put this, that this is not a date that you attended and just never finished, because that always comes out in an interview and it can almost look as if you're trying to mislead someone. So if you graduated, put the date. If it's still in progress, you can put that here. If you finished it and don't feel like the date's necessary, then just take it off. But just make sure if this is listed that it's relevant and that it's accurate. And lastly, if you have a certification, make sure you list the dates that it was active. Tons of people will put certifications on their resume, but they won't be active. They may have expired years before. So make sure that this section is up to date as well. And it lists the name of the company or organization where you received the certification and the name of the certification itself. Again, this also helps with your level of relevance in the actual search criteria. Once you've kind of built out this framework, this is where you're going to select everything and choose a consistent font and formatting. So you'll choose your text size. Make sure that you don't have any weird spacing. And then from here, you would be able to make any small changes. Like maybe you want your name to be a little bit bigger. Maybe you want this to go into a specific template. Word has a ton of templates you can work with. So you can just click File, New, and search for templates. And this is one of the sample templates I found. And you can just paste your information in here. But I recommend always having something a little bit more basic, just in case you're going for a position that may not be as art-oriented, or maybe you have employers that really just want something that's straightforward and to the point. So that's all that I have for you. Again, please don't forget to like and subscribe, check back into the channel, and check out those links in the description if you're interested in learning more.